Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday afternoon stream that I do. Um, kind of as per usual, these Sunday streams are going to be definitely even more on the casual side than normal than I normally do. We're going to be playing these beginner decks. So these are decks that I built. There's 10 of them, and I built them specifically for kind of new players, for teaching them, and for beginners to Magic and Commander who kind of need a little bit of time to be eased into playing Magic and definitely playing Commander. But there's in these 10 decks, there's two of each color. There's a and they're all tribal, so they all kind of focus on a specific tribe. So in red, we have goblins and dragons. In green, we have elves and hydras. In blue, we have thopters and sphinxes. In black, we have zombies and demons. And then white, we have soldiers and angels. So today we're going to be playing hydras versus goblins versus angels, and we're going to see how well they fare against each other. The kind of idea here is that each of these beginner decks are meant to be balanced pretty well against each other. Certainly, in the hands of a skilled player, there's probably one or more of them that are a little bit better than the other ones. But on a kind of average level, the games should equal out where every deck kind of gets to do its own thing. They get a chance to see what Magic can do and see if they like it or not. Especially, it's kind of almost like a board game in that sense, rather than maybe competitive Magic. So these may not look like perfectly normal Commander games, but they're meant to kind of simulate that in a sense, and maybe launch some people's interest into playing something that may be a little bit heavier on strategy or on obscurity with the cards and their interactions with other cards and stuff like that. So let's go and get started. This Hydra deck is a pretty simple one. We're kind of just ramping into mana and playing big Hydras. So that's how a lot of the big tribes go. But the Hydra one in particular, its quirk is that it focuses a lot on enchantments so that we can take advantage of our commander, who is Gargos, Vicious Watcher. So Gargos is a 6-cost Hydra that's so 3 colorless and 3 green. He starts out as a Vigilance 8/7 creature, so he has 8 power and 7 toughness, and then he makes Hydra spells cost 4 less to cast. So once we get him out, we can get out other Hydras a lot quicker. Then, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos, Vicious Watcher, fights up to one target creature you don't control. So the reason that we're focusing on enchantments is because enchantments do target, so we can target our own creatures with them, and once we do, then Gargos will try to eat somebody else's creature. And we just can keep doing that, and there's some enchantments that can be replayed a bunch of times, and we're going to take specific advantage of enchantments with stuff like, or also with stuff like Season of Growth, that has whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can scry one. So scry is just you look at the top card of your library, and then you can put that card on the top or bottom of your library. And Season of Growth is a low cost, so a two mana, 1 colorless, 1 green enchantment. So like I said, we're kind of leaning into the enchantment theme there. And then it also has whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. So again, we are going to be targeting our own creatures with spells, but specifically enchantment auras, and then trying to go from there. So after that, our main plan here, so we really like seeing a decent number of land to start out with, and this is actually almost enough to cast Gargos. So we're going to need one more land or maybe a ramp card. So what we're going to do, what our game plan is we're going to start off with Season of Growth. Then we're going to play our Mana Gorger Hydra, because the longer it's out, the bigger it gets, and it starts off really small, but then it gets bigger. And then once we can, we'll probably play Gargos first, and then after that we'll play Hydra Omnivore. Hydra Omnivore is such a cool card. I think it's kind of criminally underplayed, but I think I can also imagine why, because it does take another card normally to make it really, really good. So it's a 6-cost Hydra, 4 colorless, 2 green, that is an 8/8, and whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So basically, we're going to attack somebody who is completely open, and once we attack them and deal damage to them, then it'll deal damage to all the other players. So, to draw our first card for the turn, so untap, upkeep, draw is the initial part of your turn. So you start off, since we are just starting now, we are going to draw our first card for the turn, and it is another forest, so perfect there. We will go ahead and put that into our hand, and then since it's our first turn, we are going to, and we don't have anything specific to play on our first turn, we're going to put this Havenwood Battleground land into play tap. So you can only play 1 land per turn, and we're going to put this into play because it starts into play tapped, so we wouldn't be able to use it this turn if we had something that only costs 1 mana. And then Havenwood Battleground, it can tap for a regular green mana, or we can sacrifice it after we tap it and add 2 green mana, so we can get a small boost if we need to, but for the moment we'll just use it for the 1 mana per turn. Now let us shimmy on over to the Goblin deck. So goblins are one of the small tribes. The other red tribe is dragons, so dragons being big and goblin being small, that's why I named them that way. Goblins are going to be very, very fast. They're going to produce a bunch of them, and we're just going to try to overwhelm our opponents with making a bunch of goblins as quickly as we can. So everything on our deck is pretty much very low cost, and like I said, we're just going to try to make as many as we can. And Krinko, our commander, is going to help out with that. Krinko 10 Street Kingpin is a 3-cost 1/2 creature, legendary creature, so 2 colorless, 1 red, and it has, whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, then you create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to Krinko's power. So when it attacks the first time, it's actually going to make 2 goblins, and then the next turn 3, and so on and so forth. So it kind of, if Krinko gets out of control too quickly, then it becomes a real big liability for everybody else, because I can just keep making more and more 1/1 goblins, and there's not much you can do about it. So when we start off here, we see that we only have 2 lands, which compared to the Gargos deck, we started with 4, and we really liked that. So I mean, this is randomized shuffling, of course, but Gargos deck, we were wanting to start with a good number of lands in our opening hand, whereas goblins, we don't want to start with very many lands. We want to start with just a couple of lands, maybe just enough to cast Krinko the first time, and then all of the rest of them we want to be actual cards that we can do stuff with. So this is a goblin that creates goblins. This is a goblin that makes spells cheaper. This is a goblin that gives all of our stuff haste. This goblin allows us to destroy artifacts by sacrificing goblins. And then this card is a sorcery that makes goblins. So they're all, like this 4-cost card is the highest card. Well, I guess Goblin Trash Master is also 4, but all of the rest of these, so 2 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, and then Krinko is 3 cost. So that's a really good hand to start with, especially because even if we don't draw a land, we can use Cheering Fanatic to get the other mana that we need for Krinko. So let's go and draw our first card for the turn. Let's see where we're at. Oh, Quest for the Goblin Lord. Awesome. So that's actually what we're going to start out with. We're going to go ahead and play a mountain for our first turn, and we're going to use its mana to cast Quest for the Goblin Lord. So whenever it's a 1-cost enchantment, so 1 red, and it has go goblins go, yeah, exactly. Whenever a goblin enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a quest counter on Quest for the Goblin Lord. As long as Quest for the Goblin Lord has 5 or more counters on it, creatures you control get +2/+0. So this is going to be a cheap, easy way for us to get Krinko's power bumped up and allow us to be able to get even more goblins quicker. So we're doing really well with that build, or with this hand. So Moving on to Angels. Angel's quirk here is that we are going to try to focus on life gain. We're going to try to do things that gain us life and hopefully use that to offset the damage that we take, because we're a little bit slower, but we can gain a ridiculous amount of life, and we have a few cards that do kind of crazy things with life once we get a lot of it. So Regina, the Redeemer, is our commander, and she's a 6-cost 4/4 flying angel, so 5 colorless, 1 white, and then at the end of each turn, if we gained life this turn, we get to create 2 warrior tokens for free. 1/1 white warrior tokens. So what we're looking for with this hand is we're looking for mana, like the Gargos deck. We are a big tribe. Our small tribe is actually a soldier deck. So we do want a little bit of mana to start out with. And thankfully we did actually get that. Maybe a little bit too much mana, but that can be worked around depending upon what we draw. We did, so 5 lands is what we started with, and we can work around it a little bit with the help of this Pearl Medallion, which is kind of the reason why I decided to take this hand, because Pearl Medallion makes it so that all our white spells cost 1 less to cast, which is really cool to do. It'll make us go a little bit quicker once we can get some more cards in our hand. And so then our last card for starting hand of 7, when you start Magic, normally the rules are that you start with 7 cards in your hand. Then we have Valkyrie Harbinger, which is a 6-cost 4/5 flying lifelink angel. And it has, at the beginning of each end step, if you gained 4 or more life each turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So she almost essentially, every time we gain 4 or more life, we'll be able to get a free creature from it. So essentially, we're just looking for our life gain cards now, because we got some really good stuff here. Thank you, Cuckoo Clock. Okay, so let's see what our first card this turn is going to be, and look at that. Worn Power Stone is actually a really good card for us, because this means that we may actually be able to cast our Commander or Valkyrie Harbinger on our 5th turn. We may actually do the Valkyrie Harbinger first, just because it is lifelink. So this Worn Power Stone is a 3-cost artifact that comes into play tapped, and then on our next turn, after we get to untap it, we can start adding 2 colorless mana to our mana pool. So it is another ramp card, which is exactly, like I said, exactly what we were wanting to see. So let's go ahead and we will put this Path of Ancestry into play tapped. It is a land card, and that's why we're doing it now, so that our second turn we will be able to cast Pearl Medallion, which is a 2-cost artifact. And it has add to your mana pool 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So our color identity is white for this deck. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, we scry 1. And scrying just means that we look at the top card of our library, and then we can decide to put it on the top or bottom. Essentially, the idea there is that we can filter the cards that we don't want to play, and be able to hopefully draw into better cards that we actually do want. So when it comes to decks like this, Commander is a format that uses if it's not a basic land card, so the basic lands are mountains, swamps, forests, islands, and plains. So if it's not one of those, we can have any number of those up to 100, essentially, or up to 99, I guess. If it's not one of those, we can only have 1 of any card in our deck. So there's going to be some cards that are really good for specific situations, and cards that aren't. That card, like we may come up to those specific situations, or we may not, which means that some cards won't be useful to us in certain scenarios, and we may not want to draw them next. So that's what the scry ability is really good for. Not quite as good as drawing cards, like drawing extra cards, but we make do. So let's pass the turn. That's all we can do for this turn. We will go back to the Hydra deck. and probably be playing the Season of Growth card that we had in our hand. And so let's go ahead and untap our land. So the first thing that we do in a turn is untap. Then upkeep. Upkeep is just a phase that has like there are certain abilities and certain effects will happen during the upkeep, but we don't have any of those. So then we will go to the we will go to draw a card for the turn, and it is a forest, which not too bad, since that means that we can cast Gargos without having to sacrifice our Half-and-Wood Battleground, or we may do it anyway, just so that we can get out Gargos one turn earlier. So let's play that land, and we will tap both of them, both our lands, for 2 mana, so that we can cast Season of Growth, which is that land that allows us to scry whenever a creature enters our battlefield. And also, if we target any of our creatures, then we can draw a card. So, with that being said, that is the end of our turn. We will go back to the Goblin deck. And the Goblin deck will start off by untap, and then upkeep. We, again, don't have anything, so then we will just go to drawing a card. Beetleback Chief. Oh, that's not too bad. Beetleback Chief is a 2/2 goblin for 4 mana. And the reason it costs 4 mana, so 2 colorless, 2 red, is that when it comes into the battlefield, we get to create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So we essentially pay 4 mana for 4 power in the form of 3 different creatures. So that's pretty good. We will play the Mutavault, which is a land that you can pay 1 mana, and it becomes a 2/2 creature with all creature types until end of turn, and it's still a land. Otherwise, we can tap it for a mana, and that's what we're going to do this turn. So that becoming a creature may come in handy later on, but for now, we will just tap 2, and we will play Cheering Fanatic, which is a 2-cost 2/2 goblin that whenever it attacks, I get to choose a card name, and then spells with the chosen name cost 1 less to cast for the rest of that turn. And because we had a goblin enter the battlefield, we get a counter on our quest for the Goblin Lord. Now, let's rotate around back to the Angels, because we don't have any attacks. So creatures, when they come into play, they can't attack on the turn that they were played. They have a thing called Summoning Sickness. So until they spend an entire turn on our side of the board, they can't do anything. So we will pass the turn over back to the Angel deck. And the Angels will untap their Path of Ancestry, draw a card, and oh, looky there, Resplendent Angel. So Resplendent Angel, like I said, that we're trying to take advantage of life gain as much as we possibly can. So Resplendent Angel is a 3/3 angel with flying for 3 mana, 1 colorless, 2 white. And it has, at the beginning of each end step, if you gained 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So essentially it's the exact same as our Valkyrie Harbinger, except that we just need to gain one more life because the Harbinger is 4 life to get an angel, and Resplendent Angel is 5. But if we pay 6 mana, so 3 colorless, 3 white, Resplendent Angel can also, until end of turn, gain +2/+2 and lifelink. So essentially, we can pay 6 mana to give herself enough power and the life gain ability so that she can activate herself. So yeah, we're actually looking pretty sweet here. We are going to play a Plains, then we will pay 2 mana and cast the Pearl Medallion, which is the one that makes our white spells cost less. So next turn, basically our plan is going to be to play another land, play this artifact so that we can ramp even further, and then we'll start playing Angels, and hopefully, probably, let's see if we have, we will actually, the turn that we untap this Worn Power Stone, we will actually have enough to be able to cast the Valkyrie Harbinger. And then most likely, I think depending upon what we see, the battlefield may have changed at that point, but we're playing the Harbinger first just because it has the life gain naturally. And then after that, we very likely could be playing Regina, because Regina gives us multiple creatures, and we can use those to block goblins particularly. But we don't know yet exactly, so we will pass the turn. Back to the Hydras. So the Hydras are definitely going to be looking to trying to get, because they can see now that the Goblins are definitely going to be getting out their commander next turn. So we want to try to, we almost certainly want to be trying to get Gargos out so that we can have a big blocker and really deter the Krinko from attacking us. So we'll untap, draw a card, and it is Genesis. So this is one of the few, I mean, Hydras have kind of a problem in that there's not like a ton of mono green Hydras, or at least there's not a ton of mono green Hydras that we may or may that we particularly care about. They may be weak, or they may cost a lot of mana and not do enough. So this is a way to help us kind of get around that by playing Genesis, which is it's a creature card for 5 mana, and it's a 4/4. It's a creature type called Incarnation, which is kind of interesting, but it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, if Genesis is in your graveyard, you may pay 2 colorless and 1 green. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So as long as Genesis is in our graveyard, we can pay mana each of our turns, to return a different creature from our graveyard. We could return Genesis, but that would kind of be beside the point when we want to use him to keep getting things back. But the idea being that if we have a creature that dies, then we can, like a Hydra, we can just keep bringing the Hydra back. So that's a pretty decent card to have in our hand for later, when we are seeing our Hydras die frequently. For now, we will play a Forest and play Mana Gorger Hydra, which is a 3-cost 1/1 Hydra. So it's a really low one, but it has Trample. So Trample just means that when we get into combat with the Hydra, specifically when I'm the attacker, so when this guy is attacking and it gets into combat, then whatever the damage is that it takes to do lethal to a creature, normally when combat happens, all damage is applied to the creature. So if I was attacking, like say Mana Gorger Hydra actually had, like let's say it was 6 power, right? And the thing that I was fighting was 3 power. So I attack, somebody else blocks, it has 3 toughness, I should say, not power. So the opposing creature has 3 toughness. Then if I didn't have Trample, then all 6 of this damage would be applied to the other creature. But with Trample, it means that I only have to apply 3 of the damage to the defending creature, and the other 3 damage goes straight to the player's face. So it tramples over is the idea there. So it has Trample, it's a 1/1, which doesn't do us any good, but whenever a player casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. So each time somebody tries to play something, my Mana Gorger Hydra becomes stronger. So that means that we may not be able to block the Cheering Fanatic this turn, but the next turn we should be able to do something about blocking. So we will go ahead and pass to the Goblin deck. And the Goblins will untap, upkeep, draw a card, and they drew another land. So this was really good for us, because that means that we may actually be able to do something in the upcoming turns, because it means that Cheering Fanatic will actually get us the rest of the way for the rest of the cards that are in our hand, because we have multiple, we have 4-cost, 4-cost, and another 4-cost. But now with 3 lands and Cheering Fanatic, we will be able to play at least one of them. So let's go ahead and do, let's see. So we are going to go ahead and attack with Cheering Fanatic. We will attack the Hydra deck. So the Hydras, like I said, just has a 1/1, so they are not going to do any blocking. But when Cheering Fanatic attacks, we get to choose a card name. So we will choose Krinko 10 Street Kingpin. And that means that Krinko will cost 1 less mana our next turn. Or no, for the rest of this turn. So the Hydra deck is going to take 2 damage and be down to 38. And then on our second main phase, we will pay 2 and cast Krinko, because normally Krinko would cost 3, and in this case it only costs 2. So when we cast a spell, Mana Gorger Hydra is going to get a +1/+1 counter and be 1 stronger. And now we have 2 goblins, and when a goblin comes into play, we get another counter on Quest for the Goblin Lord. So let's pass the turn over to the Angel deck. And we did, so sorry, the reason that we attacked the Hydra deck now is because, like I said, the Hydras can block the Cheering Fanatic the next turn now. If we'd went ahead and cast Krinko this turn, then we wouldn't have been able to attack Hydras. So basically, while we still can, we went ahead and dealt a little bit of damage to the Hydra deck, because we can always attack the Angels as long as they don't have creatures out. So we're not, we're not necessarily super concerned about not attacking the Angels this turn, because we will almost certainly attack them on a following turn. So let's rotate around over here to the Angel deck. So untap, upkeep, and draw a card. Angel of Jubilation. Angel of Jubilation is a 4-cost 3/3 angel with flying, so 1 colorless, 3 white. And it has other non-black creatures you control get +1/+1. So that will make all of our creatures stronger. And then players can't pay life or sacrifice creatures to cast spells or activate abilities. Now, like I said, there are cards that in the deck that may be very specific to a very specific scenario. And in this case, black decks typically pay life and sacrifice creatures a lot to be able to do things. Strangely enough, the Goblin deck actually does have some sacrifice abilities. So we can use this to prevent the Goblin deck from being able to use those effects. And in fact, we do have one of those in our hand right now. The Goblin Trash Master is a goblin that allows you to sacrifice goblins in order to destroy artifacts, which could be very important in the near future, actually. So we do not know that they have that in their hand, though. So we're not going to be playing Angel of Jubilation. We are going to just continue on our path for getting more mana by playing the Worn Power Stone into play tapped. So next turn, we will have all the mana that we need to be able to cast the Valkyrie Harbinger. So until then, we will pass the turn back to the Hydras. And because we cast a spell with the Angel deck, the Mana Gorger Hydra is going to get another power stronger and be a 3/3. So I'm changing it off screen, but it's going to be coming around here in a second. Over to the Hydras. And so we will untap, upkeep, draw a card, and it is another forest. So we would like to see not another forest, hopefully next turn. So we will go ahead and play that forest. And unfortunately, because we don't have anything else to play right now, because it costs too much, we are actually going to go ahead and pass the turn. And the reason we're passing the turn here, instead of playing anything else, is because we want to be able to have Mana Gorger Hydra as a blocker in case Krinko comes at us. Because right now, we actually do have enough to block Krinko and kill it without losing our Mana Gorger Hydra. So hopefully that will be enough to deter the Goblin deck from attacking us, at least with Krinko. And maybe that will change in a subsequent turn, but for now it should work unless they have removal. So we will pass the turn. Oh man, I even talked about Season of Growth and then get our scry going. That's okay, I got a little distracted explaining Mana Gorger Hydra. Okay, so untap, upkeep, draw a card, and we have Goblin Bushwhacker. Nice. So here's the thing. What we have in our hand right now is we have a goblin that makes another goblin, and then that only costs 2. And then we have Goblin Bushwhacker, which Goblin Bushwhacker is a 1-cost 1/1 goblin. It has kicker, so you may pay the additional kicker cost as you cast the spell. And if you do, you get a special effect. So normally it's just a 1/1 creature, but if you pay the kicker cost, then creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we can cast both of these this turn. So we have other choices, of course. We don't necessarily have to play either of those, but the reason that it may be important is because if we play them now, say we play each of these, we will get 3 goblins coming into play because of the instigator creating an extra one. Once we do that, Quest for the Goblin Lord will be fully maxed out, and it'll give our creatures +2/+0 until end of turn. Which means that Krinko 10th Street Kingpin, when it attacks, it will have 1, 2, 3, 4 attack. And that will mean that it will be able to create 4 goblins in a single turn, which is crazy good. So I think that's what we're going to go ahead and do because it launches us way quicker than what other people might expect. So we will go ahead and we will cast both of these goblins. And when we do, Mana Gorger Hydra will get 2 more counters and be a 5/5, which is okay. We need to grab the goblin tokens. So we get 1 goblin token right there for the Goblin Instigator. And now we can go ahead and do our attack step. So during our attack step, we will declare attackers. We will attack with both of these, so Krinko and Cheering Fanatic. When we attack, we get 2 effects. One of the effects will put a +1/+1 counter on Krinko, and then we create goblins equal to its power. Its power being 4 means that we get 4 goblins here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Cheering Fanatic would matter, but we're not going to be able to cast any other spells this turn. So we can, name something like Lurgoyf and make Lurgoyfs we cast cost 1 less until end of turn. So now we have ourselves a goblin army. So now we have to calculate damage. The angel deck does not have any blockers, so they're going to take the full amount of damage. So this one is 4 damage from Krinko and 4 damage from Cheering Fanatic, which means that we deal 8 damage total and bring the angel deck down to 32. Here we go. And we also dealt commander damage, which becomes quite important really quickly. Let's see. How do I want to do that? I left my marker and the card stuff in another room, so let me go and get that real quick. Okay, back. Sorry about that. Need to keep track of the commander damage, so let me do this. And mark up Regina. I don't know how to. I'm probably gonna keep saying Regina. She's taking 4 damage from goblins. There we go. Now let's see. So what this means is that, this got some counters on it when goblins came to play. There's 5. So what this means is that instead of just being 1/1 goblins here, these are now 3/1 goblins. which means the 5 goblins we just created are going to be attacking with 15 power. That adds up, that amount of damage adds up very, 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 very quickly. And it's possible that we could run away with the game if nothing else changes. If nobody else ends up playing any creatures or anything that can really stop us, then it may not matter what they play. We could just take over the game. So we are going to go ahead and pass the turn now. Okay, so, and this is kind of how it was meant to be. The goblins are meant to be really, really good at the beginning, but the longer the game goes on, the big tribes could possibly take over. And we've kind of seen that with the other games that we've done on Sundays. We've seen the goblins do really well at the very, very beginning, and then kind of fall apart later. So we untap our lands. During our upkeep, we don't have any other effects, so we will draw a card, and there you go. That is a really good card for what we're looking for. Martial Coup is known as a wrath effect, which means that it's part of its purpose is to try to destroy a lot of creatures, or particularly the whole board. So, let's see. So we want to play a land card, and we need to calculate to see if we can actually get Martial Coup up to the level it needs to be. So here's 2 mana to cover its initial cost. Here's 4 more, and then that reduces the cost by 1. So yes, we have enough for Martial Coup, and I think we're going to go ahead and do that because that helps us restabilize what's going on. We are going to cast Martial Coup for X equals 5. So it's a Martial Coup costs X mana and then 2 white. So like I said, we said 2 white here, and then we paid 4, but its cost is reduced by 1, so that's 5 total for our X number. And it has create X 1/1 soldier creature tokens. I think we're just going to, well, we do have soldiers right here, so here's our 5 soldiers. And then it has, if X is 5 or more, which it was, destroy all other creatures. So, even though Mana Gorger Hydra, because we cast a spell, it does get a +1/+1, but it's going to die anyway. So, here's all of our soldiers. Now we have some protectors, and all of the goblins are going to be killed, and the Mana Gorger Hydra. So, we will go ahead and rotate. We tapped out, so we don't have anything else to do with the Angel deck, so it'll go straight to the Hydra turn. So, unfortunately, here's all of our goblins. We still got our Quest for the Goblin Lord activated, which is good. It's still really good to have that activated. But we are going to be slowed down a bit because Krenko is dead. So we are going to try to recover some of that if at all possible. Mana Gorger Hydra was 5, but like I said, it dies. So we are going to go ahead and move it into the graveyard. And so now we are somewhat less concerned about trying to get Gargos out immediately, but we may still go ahead and do that just in case. We draw for our turn Genesis Hydra. It's an X cost with 2 green for a plant Hydra. It starts off with a 0/0, but it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So whatever we pay into X is how strong it ends up being. And then when we cast it, we reveal cards from the top of our library. We may put a non-land permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest of our library. So that's a really good one for once we get Gargos out and we can reduce the cost, we can make a really big Genesis Hydra, which will also then hopefully get another really good card out. So I think that we do want to just hang back, and maybe we'll go ahead and play this Genesis because it costs 5. So then we have at least a blocker, and ultimately we know that we will try to just let it die if possible. So hopefully it'll be able to block something big and get crushed. Otherwise, at least we have a blocker, and the next turn we will play Gargos. Rotating back over to the goblins. We will untap our lands. then draw a card, and it is another land. So really good. We're just one land off from being able to replay Krenko. So here's Haunted Fengraf, and then let's see. So let's go ahead and play this Beetleback Chief. So at the very least, if we can't get Krenko, then the idea is we'll play Beetleback Chief now, which creates 2 Goblin tokens when it comes into play. So here's our 2 Goblins. And then the next turn, we will try playing Goblin Trashmaster. Other Goblins we control get +1/+1, and then it has Sacrifice a Goblin, destroy target artifact. So we will be getting essentially 5/2 Goblins on our next turn, which will, for the Goblin token. So that's actually a pretty strong, front to have. So let's go ahead and rotate. And we could keep putting counters on Quest for the Goblin Lord. But there's not really any cards in any of these decks that deal with removing counters from things. So I'm not too afraid of just leaving it that as is and not adding more counters. But arguably, I could add more counters if I wanted to. So let's go over to Angels. And Angels is going to untap. We will draw a card for the turn, and it is Moonsilver Spear. So equipped creature has, it's a 4-cost artifact in equipment, so it's basically a weapon that you can give to one of your creatures. And it costs 4 mana to equip to a creature. So 4 to play, 4 to equip, but it has, the equipped creature will have first strike, and then whenever it attacks, you get to have a 4/4 angel token with flying just come out. So this will be cool on a later date, but right now we have a lot of other things that we can do. So we will go ahead and play another land, and let's take account for how much mana we have available. So we have 5, 6, 7, and that reduces by 1. So we do probably want to go ahead and play this Valkyrie Harbinger. So we will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the 6th mana is reduced by 1 by the Pearl Medallion. So Valkyrie Harbinger comes into play, and because it shares a creature type, and we used Path of Ancestry to be able to cast it, we get to scry 1. So Adakar Valkyrie is on top. This is a nice angel, but I think that we want to get down to more life gain stuff. So it doesn't have life gain by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bottom of our library, and then see about being able to draw a better card next turn. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to pay 2 mana to be able to cast Resplendent Angel. So it would cost 3, but Pearl Medallion, again, reduces the price. That's why we played it so early, is because now we get to really cut down on mana and play more than one spell each turn. So Resplendent Angel is going to come out. And now we're trucking. Now we got the power with the Angels. We're getting to see what they can do. So we aren't going to declare any attackers because we're just going to use them to block goblins, most likely. Maybe Genesis if it attacks, but they can just be chump blockers for now. And then we'll rely on the angels that we have to deal most of our damage. So we will pass the turn back over to Hydras. So let us begin our turn by untap, upkeep, draw a card, and Moldvine Cloak. So like I said, this is an enchantment, so it's a 3-cost enchant creature that has enchanted creature gets +3/+3, and then if this Moldvine Cloak ends up going to our graveyard, then we can, whenever we would draw a card, we can instead take the top 2 cards of our library, put them into our graveyard, and return Moldvine Cloak to our hand. So that's the reason that this is in here, is because it can be difficult to get rid of. And considering that it allows us to activate Gargos, we are really glad that we finally got to see it. So we are going to play 1 forest and then we will pay 6 mana and cast Gargos, and hopefully this will help us maybe take back control of the game if we need to. We do need to draw some more enchantments and things, but let's see what happens when we forgot to Season of Growth the second time. Okay, so sorry, I need to remember that. So Season of Growth, when a creature enters the battlefield, we get to scry 1. Our scry on top is the, holy crap, one of the best cards in the deck, Vigor. It is another incarnation, so another it's another Hydra spell, but it does a lot for what we're looking for with Gargos. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on top. I do not want it on the bottom. I want to play it next turn, absolutely. So after that, we will pass the turn to the Goblins. Goblins, goblins, goblins. Let's see. Untap, upkeep, draw a card. Oh, another mountain. Oh, that's it. That's, like I said, if we drew the other land that we needed, we would play Krinko, and there he is. So the reason that it costs 5 mana now instead of 3 is because each time your commander gets put into the command zone after you cast it, so each time you cast it, the next time you cast it from the command zone, it costs 2 extra, and then it costs 2 extra times the number of times you've cast it. So if Krinko ends up dying again, it will cost us 7 mana instead of 5, like it was this time. So it's sort of a way to allow you to keep replaying an important card in your deck, but you're going to definitely pay dearly for it, so you really want to be sure it's a card that you want to replay. So now that we have that, we could do an attack, but we are kind of behind and we need to build up, and so we are going to just go ahead and let it go and go to the next turn and see what happens with what the other decks do. We'll probably try to attack with Krinko next turn so that we can get some more goblins, but for now we can't, the Krinko doesn't have haste, so we can't attack with him this turn. So the Angels are going to untap. We will draw a card. It is Angel of Condemnation. So, that's an interesting one. I think for now, we actually are okay leaving it in our hand. It's a low cost angel. It's 2 colorless, 2 white, so 4 mana total for a 3/3, and it is flying and vigilance. So that means that when it attacks, it doesn't actually tap. And then it has the ability to exile creatures and either return them to the battlefield or permanently exile them. So we're not looking at really permanently exiling anything right now. So we're just going to hold that in our hand and probably just cast our commander. So this is 4 mana. Oh, no, sorry, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So that is enough to cast Regina, the Redeemer. And now we can decide what we want to do. So I think that we are going to go ahead and double attack with our Angels. Sorry. So let's go and move these up a little bit. Okay, so we are going to double attack, I think the Goblin deck for now. We haven't really done anything necessarily against the Hydra deck, so we politically speak, like politics, table politics speaking, we don't want to anger the Hydra deck yet because we don't know what they have in their hand. They could have something that gets rid of our Angels really quickly, so we want to go and hold off a little bit and see if we can't build up an army first. So we are going to attack for 7 damage, the Goblin deck, and because these are both flyers, they cannot block either of them, so they are going to take the full 7 damage and be down to 33. And when we deal damage with Valkyrie Harbinger, we gain 4 life, and we will be up to 36. So, at the end of our turn, since we gained life, we gained 4 life, specifically, we get to have an Angel from our Harbinger. So let's go ahead and find an angel. There's our 4/4 angel. But also, since we have Regina out at the beginning of our end step, if we gained 2 or more life, we get to create 2 warrior tokens. Now, these are still labeled soldiers, but we're not too concerned about it right now. Someday I'll probably fix that, but for now we'll just leave it as is. So now we have definitely a huge army here to help defend us, and we can start taking advantage of stuff like that. So with that, I think maybe that will be the end of our turn for now. Okay, so back over to the Hydra deck. Let's see what the Hydras are going to do. I think, we kind of already know, I think, what they're going to do, because it just sort of makes sense to go ahead and play the card that we're about to draw, just because we scryed that last turn. Let's see. What have we got here? Untap. Upkeep. We don't have an upkeep, so we'll just go to drawing a card, and it is Vigor, the Indomitable Vigor card. So we will play the last forest that's in our hand. And then we will pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana to cast Vigor. So I didn't explain what Vigor did last turn, so let's go ahead and describe it now. Vigor is an elemental incarnation. It costs 6 mana, and it is a 6/6 trampler. It has, if damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. And then if it dies, instead of putting it into the graveyard, you shuffle it back into your library. So that means that whenever Gargos would be dealt damage, it instead becomes stronger, which is crazy. That is bananas good. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and attack with Gargos. Oh wait, so first, because a creature came into play under our control, we get Season of Growth. We can scry 1. Polukranos World Eater. I think that we do want that on the top, So the scrying is an ability that allows you to put the top card of your library. You get to look at it, and then you can put it on the top or the bottom. So we are going to put the Polukranos, which is another Hydra, onto the top of our library. It will go really well with Vigor. It's also cheap to cast, so we will play that, and we'll be playing a bunch of cards next turn. So for now, we will go to our attack step, which will allow us to attack with Gargos, and we're eyeing the angels over there and seeing them build up stuff, so we're going to go ahead and attack them. The angels they have a few angels out, but we don't really want to lose them, and we certainly don't want them to block Gargos, because they'll just make Gargos really, really big. So we will, as the angel deck, we will decide to block Gargos with a 1/1 soldier. So I'll just go and show it. Oh, Gargos has Vigilance anyway. Sorry about that. So Vigilance means that when they attack, they don't tap. So that means that Gargos can play both offense and defense. So here's the soldier token. It's going to try to block Gargos and die very miserably. And then Gargos, since it took 1 damage, will get a +1/+1 counter because of Vigor. So after that, we will pass the turn. We don't have anything else to do. We don't have enough mana to cast something like this Moldervine Cloak. That's 3. We only have 2 mana left. So we will just pass to the goblins and see what they can do. Which the goblins should probably be pretty afraid now. The angels have too many creatures, and the Hydra deck has freaking Vigor. So very strong cards opposing us. It's untap, draw a card, and it is Goblin King. So other goblins you control get +1/+1 and have Mountain Walk. So unfortunately, nobody else has mountains. But the +1/+1 is still good for us for Krinko, especially. So let's go ahead and we will pay 4 mana to cast this Goblin Trashmaster. And now all of our goblins get an additional +1/+1, which means that Krinko, we could attack with Krinko and make a bunch of goblins, but I think that what we'll do is we'll wait one more turn and we will play Goblin King so that we can have a really big Krinko for its first attack. And hopefully Gargos doesn't eat all our goblins, but I guess we'll find out and see and find out. So we will pass over to the angels. And again, the reason that we're not attacking with goblins is because the angel deck is just going to chump block all of our goblins and probably kill them. And still have leftovers, and they're going to just keep making more and more creatures. So it doesn't really do us much good to attack now when we could lose the creatures that we need to deal damage. So we will wait for an attack, and then once somebody has attacked with enough things, that's when we will hopefully have enough openings to get in some damage. So we will untap with this, draw a card for the turn. It is a Plains, so we will go ahead and play that land. After that, let's see, what can we do? So, I think that actually what we're going to do is, I think we're going to play another angel here. So we see that Goblin Trashmaster, and we don't really want it to destroy all of our artifacts, because that would be really bad. So we are going to go ahead and play Angel of Jubilation, which means that they can't sacrifice creatures in order to activate abilities, specifically the Goblin Trashmaster. Now, in response, we could sacrifice goblins in order to try to cripple the mana that the angels have. The thing, though, is that if we did that, we would lose a decent amount of power. We would actually be losing 4 power for each goblin, so 8 power total. Just to be able to destroy some artifacts that won't really, like, if the artifacts that were here were really strong, then it would almost certainly be worth it. But since it's just mana and the angels don't have very many cards in their hand, they're not, yes, they could still do some things, but I'm afraid that that's going to be too much of a sacrifice. And if we don't destroy them now, then maybe that also means that we will get on the angels' good side, and they will decide to attack the hydras instead of us. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the goblins are not going to sacrifice anything, which means that Angel of Jubilation will come out, and we will still have all of our mana intact. And because of that, which means that we will be able to cast something else, so we will tap 4 more mana to be able to play the Moon Silver Spear, which will, next turn, we can equip in order to start getting even more angels out. Now, I think that we do want to try to get some beatdowns on the Hydra deck, because Gargos and Vigor together are way too good to allow to sit around for too long. So we are going to... oh, this angel actually has Vigilance. I wonder if I have an angel with Vigilance. Like flying and Vigilance saying it on the card. Okay, so it doesn't look like I do. So we will just have to remember that this angel right here has Vigilance. So these soldiers are going to stick it out here on the ground, but the rest of these angels are going to fly over the heads of the hydras and deal a bunch of damage. We are going to deal, so we get +1/+1 from Angel of Jubilation. So Resplendent Angel is a 4, Valkyrie is a 4/5, Regina is a 5/5, and this angel is a 5/5. So that's 10, 15, 19 damage. Wow, that's a big hit. So 19 damage over the Hydra's head. The Hydras are down to 19 life, actually. Man, that was a big hit. And not only that, but our Valkyrie here is going to gain us 4 life. Or 5 life, because it dealt 5 damage. So we are at 41 life here. So let's go ahead and get ourselves on one more dice. So 41 life. Oh, and Regina dealt commander damage to the Hydras, so we need to go ahead and mark that. And we will say Gargos. And 5 from the Angels. So the point of keeping track of this, of how much damage the commander deals to specific players, is that if somebody takes 21 or more damage from any commander, no matter what commander it is, it could be your own. If you take 21 or more damage from your own commander, you lose the game. So that is a decent chunk that we should keep track of. So because we gained 5 life, we get 3 activations. We get 2 angels from here. So both the Resplendent Angel and the Valkyrie Harbinger create us another 4/4 flying angel with vigilance. And then Regina down here creates us two soldier tokens. Well, 2 warrior tokens, but we're going to continue using these soldiers. So here's our 2 more soldier cards. So we are definitely hoping that nobody has some kind of like crazy wrath effect to stop us, because we are definitely going to win this as it currently stands. So let us rotate back around to the Hydras and see what the Hydras can manage to do and to be able to stop this insanity from the Angel deck. So swinging around, we are going to untap. We're going to draw a card for the turn. So the card that we knew was coming was Pelucranos, World Eater. We will go ahead and, let's see here. Let's go ahead and tap 2 to play Pelucranos. So it costs 2 because Gargos reduces the cost of Hydras by 4. So Pelucranos World Eater is a 4-cost 5/5 Hydra. 2 colorless, 2 green, so we just need the green mana to be able to play it. It has a pretty interesting ability. It has a Monstrosity X ability. So we can pay X, and a green. So X means that if we choose 1 for X, then it costs 1 + 1 + a green. So 3 mana. So basically the X just doubles. The double X, just doubles the amount of X's, like however many that you need to pay to include that X. So you couldn't do something like pay 3 into 1X and pay 1 into the other. You'd have to do 3 and then 3 and a green. When you activate an ability, and you can activate it whenever you want to, it becomes monstrous. Well, first of all, when you do that, it gets X +1/+1 counters on it. So if you decided that X equals 3, then you would pay 7 mana and it would get +3/+3, essentially. And then when you do that, it becomes monstrous and it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponents control. And then each of those creatures deal damage equal to its power to Pelucranos. So essentially what we're going to be able to do with this is pour a bunch of mana into Monstrosity, put a few +1/+1 counters on it, and then after we do that, we'll just target whatever the biggest creatures are, and Vigor is going to essentially put that many +1/+1 counters on Pelucranos. So we won't kill those creatures, but we will use other people's creatures in order to make Pelucranos really, really big. After Pelucranos comes into play, we scry the top card of our library. It's a land. We don't really want to see a land. We are going to go ahead and put it on the bottom of our library. Let's see here. So I think that what we're going to do is we're going to pay 3 mana and enchant Gargos with Moldervine Cloak. So that means when we target Gargos with a spell, we get 2 abilities. First, we get to draw a card, and then we get to fight a creature with Gargos. So we are going to draw the top card of our library, and it is Wild Growth. Okay, so not great, but that's okay. We can make do with that. So let's see. Let's decide what creature we want to fight. So we are going to be dealing 9 damage to a creature, which means that basically we kill whatever we want to, essentially. And I think that the angels are going to be a particular nuisance if we let them get too far. And the thing that's kind of causing all of this nonsense is the creature that has the lifelink, because that lifelink is what's allowing them to be able to do so much stuff. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and target the Valkyrie Harbinger, which currently is a 5/6 angel. So we are going to definitely deal 9 damage is going to be dealt to the creature with 6 toughness. So it's going to die, but then it returns and deals 5 damage to Gargos. And because that damage is prevented due to vigor, we are going to get 5 +1/+1 counters and put Gargos up to 6 +1/+1. So now Gargos is like crazy huge. After that, so really we need to keep trying to whittle down what they have out on their side of the battlefield. So we are going to, I think what we want to do is, let's see, target of a spell. So let me think about this. Let me think what we want to do. Unfortunately, okay, so we do have, what I'm thinking about is we have this Genesis Hydra in our hand that we can use to be able to get a card from the top of our library, a non-land card, and hopefully, basically what I'm thinking that we're going to try to do is we're going to try to make it so that we get an enchantment that gives Gargos trample. And if we can get that, then we've hit the lottery and maybe we win the game. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to tap a green and tap and sacrifice this Havenwood Battleground to get 2 green mana. So we have 3 mana floating, and then we're going to cast Genesis Hydra for X = 5 because Gargos reduces its cost by 4. We had 3 floating mana. 2 of it's used. Oh wait, sorry. So yeah, 2. So we had 4 mana from Gargos. We have 3 mana floating. So we're going to use 2 of that to pay for the green cost of Genesis Hydra, and then the other 5 mana that we have left over is going into the X. So when we cast it, we reveal cards from X cards from the top of our library. So let's go and do that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So then it is we may reveal we may put a non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle our library. So I think that, unfortunately, as much as I do want to put Rites of Flourishing out, I think that it gives other people too much advantage because it allows, basically this enchantment allows players to draw additional cards each turn, and I think that we don't want anybody else to draw additional cards. So since this card is an instant and these cards are all land, unfortunately we're not going to get any revealed cards from Genesis Hydra. It's just going to come in with 5 +1/+1 counters. And then the rest of these, so we shuffle the rest into our library. So let's go ahead and shuffle our deck here real quick. And then we will probably attack with Gargos and try to keep putting pressure on the Angel deck. Because unfortunately, it seems like the Angels might actually be able to kill us the next turn. So I think that means that we want to... Oh, and after we resolve this ability, we do get to scry 1, but like I said, it may not matter because the Angels might be able to just outright kill us. So let's go ahead and do that. We will scry 1. It's a forest. We are absolutely going to put it onto the bottom of our library. And then I think that because we have a feeling the angels might be killing us next turn, these are creatures we can't attack with, so we will go ahead and... Unfortunately, we just have 2 creatures to attack with. So it's those 2, and they are going to just be blocked by 2 soldiers, unfortunately. So the soldiers will repel all of the damage, and then the damage that gets dealt to our creatures gets undone, essentially. So it gets prevented, and then we get a +1/+1 counter on it. So we do have a really big Gargos, and we have a decently sized Genesis, with being a 5/5 now, but it may not matter since we don't have anything to block flying creatures. So that's sort of one of the shortcomings of playing green, is that you really have to purposefully put a lot of flying protection in so you can stop stuff like this. Now, that being said, there is flying protection in Gargos, and Gargos itself can eat creatures pretty quickly if you have the right cards, but we just aren't drawing them. We're drawing all of the other cards, so unfortunately that's just kind of the way it is. So we will untap with Goblins. We will draw a card. It is a mountain, so we will go ahead and put that into play. Then I think that what we do is... Unfortunately, we're on the chopping block. The moment the Hydras are killed off, we are also going to be taking it. So I think that what we do is we just go ahead and we're going to play 2 more Goblins. One of them is Goblin King, so other Goblins you control get +1/+1 and have Mountain Walk. It's a 3-cost 2/2, so 1 colorless, 2 red. And then we are also going to play Hellraiser Goblin, which is a 3-cost 2/2, so that land that we just got allowed us to cast both of them. And Hellraiser Goblin has creatures you control have haste and attack each combat if able. So now we can go ahead and attack with the 2 that we just played, and we can attack with everything else that we have. We're just going to flat out attack the Angel deck with everything that we got, including Krinko. And Krinko, when it attacks, is going to get a +1/+1 counter. And then we get to create a number of goblins equal to its power. So its power is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we get 6 goblins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lots of goblins. Okay, so now we have to decide how the Angels are going to block. The Angels have some 4/4s. The Angel deck has 3 4/4 Angels, and then it has a bunch of soldiers. And I think that what's going to happen is we're going to essentially just block with a bunch of soldiers. And let's see. Oh man, that's a difficult decision. We need to kill Krinko almost for certain, but Krinko is a 5 toughness. Oh, I guess the Angel of Jubilation gives the angels that we have +1/+1, so they're actually 5/5s, which is enough to kill Krinko. So I think we're going to sacrifice one of the angels that we have in order to be able to stop Krinko and stop it from being able to get a bunch more goblins. But then all of the rest of the goblins that we have are going to all of the rest of the goblins are going to get chump blocked by these soldiers. So I think that it just means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, we're going to throw all of our soldiers under the bus in order to block goblins. None of the goblins are actually going to die because their toughness is 3 toughness right now. And then, let's see, goes in there. So Krinko ends up dying again, as per usual. But we have a goblin army in his wake. So if we draw 1 more mana, we're going to play Krinko 1 more time and do exactly the same thing that we just did. So, because we'll have 7 mana next. If we draw another mana, then we'll have 7 mana. So if the Angels definitely need to do something about the goblins, but the Hydra deck may be just equally as ferocious. So we like I said, we didn't take any damage, but we lost an angel, so let's go ahead and take that angel off. Oh, and the Valkyrie Harbinger got eaten, so it's dead. Let's untap and untap these creatures. Draw a card for the turn. It is Radiant Archangel. Let's see here. So, could do this. Interesting. So we have enough to equip the... Actually, let me do it like this. We have enough to equip the Moon Silver Spear, and we also can play Radiant Archangel. But the other thing is that we really need to gain life, and we don't have anything to gain life with. Unless we pay a bunch of mana into the Resplendent Angel to give it lifelink. And I think that maybe that's what essentially we just have to do that because we don't have any choice at this point. There are essentially, because that just gives us free creatures when we do that. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to pump mana, or pump Resplendent Angel with mana to give it +2/+2 in lifelink until end of turn. And then let's see how much damage we're dealing this turn. So we have a 6/6 Resplendent Angel with lifelink. We have Regina, which is a 5/5. That's 11. We have these two, which are 5/5. So that's 21. That's enough to kill the Hydra deck. But it's not enough to kill goblins. Let's see. That's tricky. It's a tricky scenario, but I think that it still makes sense to go ahead and kill the Hydras, because then we only have one opponent to worry about. So, okay, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and attack into the Hydras with these creatures. That 21 damage. We gain 6 life, putting us at 47. And then, because we gained life at the end of our turn, we get another angel, and then 2 more soldiers come back. So we still have some blockers, and we can still hopefully do what we need to do now that the Hydras are gone. The threat of getting eaten is less, but I'm looking at the amount of damage that these goblins are capable of and kind of worried that we're not going to be able to do anything. So that it won't matter what our choice was. The angels were going to die, and then it would really be up to the Hydra deck to be able to stop the goblins. I think maybe the goblins got too far ahead with the Quest for the Goblin Lord. So here we're going to untap. We'll draw a card for the turn. Faithless Looting. So not a great card, but we do have other stuff in our hand. So let's go ahead and tap 1. We will discard we'll cast Faithless Looting. So when we do that, we draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. So I think that we still like this card that's in our hand more than these 2. So we're going to go ahead and discard these 2 cards. Because what this is going to do is we are going to pay 4 mana and cast Empty the Warrens. So Empty the Warrens is a kind of interesting card that it costs 4 mana, so 3 colorless, 1 red. And then it's a sorcery, and it has put 2 1/1 goblins into play. So we will go ahead and do that. However, it also has another ability, Storm. Whenever you play this spell, copy it for each spell that was played this turn before it this turn. So we played one other spell this turn, So we get a second copy of Empty the Warrens, which means that we get another 2 goblins. These goblins have haste because of Hellraiser Goblin. So we just really upped our damage count by being able to put just randomly, almost randomly, 4 more goblins into play. So we are going to swing all out with the goblins. The hydras are gone, so I don't want those to show up too much and be confusing. They are out of here. Okay, so we just have the goblins. We are going to attack with all of our goblins. All of these guys. Like this. Here we go. Oh, one more. And that's because, like I said, that's because of Hellraiser Goblin. They all have haste. So, here we go. This means that we need to... Essentially, we need to first count how many attackers we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 goblins. So, let me think. The angels have 6 blockers. So they are almost certainly going to block all of the higher powered goblins and these 2. How much damage does that leave on the table, though? So, each of these are all the goblins that are left. They start off at 1/1s, but then they get +1/+1 from Goblin Trashmaster, and then they get another +1/+1 from Goblin King, and then they also get a +2/+0 from Quest for the Goblin Lord. So each of these goblins are 5 power. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 goblins. That is 50 damage. 50 damage, and that means that the goblin deck actually won. But for as many times as they've lost, they finally got a win. It was at the sacrifice of many goblins, but despite that, we still somehow managed to, just at the end, pull it out. So, wow, that was really cool. I'm glad it turned out this way. We're still a little shy on getting to see Gargos really go at it. It's always been really close. It's always been like right at the edge that the Hydras go, oh yeah, we're a thing that can really devastate the battlefield. But the goblins got to do a lot of stuff, and the angel deck got to do a lot of stuff. So I am still actually pretty pleased with how this turned out. I think this was actually a really good game. This had a decent amount of back and forth. A little bit shorter than some of our other weeks, but that's okay. Sometimes we get a little bit shorter games, and the small decks, the small tribes here, often do cause or can cause the games to end up going a little shorter, which is fine. But this is still a decent length. I mean, we're right at about an hour and a half, so well, I'm glad. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you for the people that have tuned in, and the many people who have followed. I'm really happy that I've gotten as many followers as I have. I hope you all continue to enjoy these, and you're welcome to, like I said, I think I've linked my YouTube channel where I'm posting the VODs for each of these. So you can go there if you have any comments, if you have anything that you'd like to see me try to play, or any ideas about the structure of these games or stuff like that. I'm happy to entertain thoughts on that and try to accommodate. So thank you all for watching, and we will be closing up the stream now. Have a great weekend.